running late. Are we ready? Are we on? Are we on, Jess? Can you hear me? Okay. You can't hear me? They're saying they cannot hear. Is it loud enough? Yeah, can you hear us? Doesn't. I mean, I can speak pretty loud when I want. Well, let's try. I'll speak very loudly. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please all stand to salute the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Prufus? Ms. Romano?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Benaya?
Here.
Mayor Miggins?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. May I have a motion to approve the September 19th, 2023 Township Committee minutes?
So
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? May I have a motion to approve the September 19th Special Township Committee minutes? May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed and no abstentions. Thank you. This evening, we have a proclamation, very exciting. I'd like to introduce Mayor Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg, Community Service Award Committee member, to introduce and provide background, and Ms. Romano is scheduled to present the proclamation. Jesse, would you be good enough to show the video? You want to do the video first? It's up to you. It's up to you, Jack. It's your
Sure,
show.
let's do the video first.
Okay.
Let's go to the video scene.
Yes.
Put your tissue.
Yeah, it's very inspiring.
Okay.
Yes, I was interviewing. Dim the lights.
Do we have sound?
We created a simple model where we collect furniture from the communities around ours and store it, and provide it to families and individuals who are transitioning from homelessness into a new apartment. And we give them furniture and household items to help them begin.
This is amazing, a life-changing experience. This is a new beginning. I'm an ex-domestic violence victim. I'm coming from a shelter. I lost everything, and this organization has given me a second chance. I'm so emotional. I just don't know what to say. I'm so grateful, so honored. This is truly a blessing.
Every day is filled with not only collecting furniture, but also meeting with clients here at the warehouse. It's picking out furniture and then organizing to deliver the furniture to their new apartment.
So me and my son were living in the shelter for a year, and we were struggling trying to find housing. I ended up finding a landlord who wanted to give me a chance, and I was moving into a brand new apartment with nothing. So this really, this birthday, like, you know, it's like I'm still really shocked. Like I really just came in here and just picked out like a whole apartment.
Never would I have imagined that in the 3.5 years, we would have helped over 530. And we moved in probably on average about 5 to 6 families a week. The actual move itself can be tricky. We have done 5 floor walk-ups in the middle of the summer, trying to maneuver enormous pieces through these small doorways. And so it's a process. And I'm thankful for all the volunteers. I have so many friends and people who volunteer their time every single day for hours.
I love helping the warehouse because you really see the work that you're doing. You see the benefits of it right away. We're helping people one at a time. People should care for the work that the warehouse does because it's truly so impactful to the people that we move in. You can see it in their faces. They're so excited to start fresh.
We have so many clients to service that we are constantly buying beds and asking for mattress donations. And we can barely keep up with the amount of furniture that we need.
So we set up apartments for refugees that have nothing. And we could not do what we do without the work of the warehouse and Jane. We did an apartment set up for a family with a condo a few weeks ago. And they walked into the apartment and they said, I'm gonna get choked up now. And they said, does this belong to the landlord? And they said, no, this belongs to you. And they were overwhelmed.
That was homeless for like 2 years in the hotel. Kim is very special to me. I mean, I wouldn't have anything.
If I would have got in contact with this warehouse, I did not know what we were gonna do. To lose everything, to know the next day where you gonna sleep, where you gonna live.
Most of the time, when I meet a new client, I walk into their apartment and they are sleeping on the floor. And the process is so amazing. You can see what an incredible impact it makes to them that they feel hope. That they actually may be able to make it this time. They might be able to have this new beginning. And we're just, happy to be a part of it.
To people considering helping, like, please do. It's really a blessing.
Everyone, this will be a little repetitious, but nevertheless. As you all know, the Community Service Award Committee highlights exceptional individuals or groups that are involved in activities that greatly enhance the quality of life of residents in our community and our neighboring communities. This is the 94th award that the Community Service Committee will be honoring this evening. To be honest, in my opinion, what Kim Sleeman and her team does is extraordinary. The warehouse began in 2019, and what they do, as you heard on the video, is collect gently used furniture, home decor items that have been donated by our community and surrounding communities, and help families and individuals that have been impacted by a variety of challenges, including domestic violence, homelessness, and natural disasters, and help them establish themselves in new surroundings. Her services are provided with no cost to these individuals and families. Her efforts began in 2019 with 27 families, 74 in 2020, 182 in 2021, 282 in 2022, and thus far, 351 in 2023, and the number is growing. Kim and her team have so positively changed the lives of these individuals and families, 925 and over 2,000 individuals. It has been an honor to get to know her and the difference that you are making to these lives every single day. Kudos to you and your team of volunteers. And it is my pleasure to introduce Kim Sleeman.
So much. When we started this 4.5 years ago, we assembled the most amazing board that you could think of, a group of women. Some of them are here today: Margaret Santana, Kara Lawler, Ali Seeger, Robin Grubkowski, and most recently, Tracy Goldenberg. These women have helped the warehouse by raising funds, by raising awareness, by supporting me. I wouldn't be here without them. So thank you. In addition, I couldn't do this without the most incredible volunteers. Deb Capana and Leah Cruz are two of my best. And Leah is actually coming up to her own milestone, having helped the warehouse team for her 200th move in.
Wow.
So thank you. So we enjoy helping the community. We do whatever we can. We just provide furniture. It's a very simple model. And I just want to thank you, the community, because without your help and your donations and your financial support, we couldn't continue, and we want to continue. We want to help as many people as we can. To date, we've helped 975 families. We're really looking forward to hitting that 1,000. So thank you.
First of all, what you and your volunteers do is very special to me, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, really. Whereas the Milburn Township Committee values the contribution of volunteers and volunteer organizations in the township and recognizes outstanding volunteers who reflect the giving spirit of our community. And whereas in 2019, Kim Sleeman decided to utilize her extensive background as a community service volunteer and established the Warehouse, New Jersey, a 501c3 organization whose mission is to assist families that have experienced displacement due to natural disasters, mental health challenges, domestic violence, and/or homelessness. And whereas the Warehouse, New Jersey works closely with more than 50 plus local social service agencies to provide gently used furniture and decorative items for these clients, which have been graciously donated by residents in the greater Essex County and surrounding communities. And whereas Kim Sleeman, her volunteers, and the Warehouse, New Jersey have established a robust board of trustees and a calendar of fundraising events, including a gala celebration, home tour, and paddle night, which has enabled the organization to further expand their scope of services to additional clients. And whereas since 2019, the organization has successfully assisted 925 families, the majority 52% in Essex County, and have positively impacted 2,100 plus lives compromised of both single residents and families. And whereas through September 2023, the Warehouse has assisted more than 220 plus families and is diligently working to complete 350 plus move-ins for families by the end of 2023. Now, therefore, Maggie Miggins, Mayor of the Township of Milburn, on behalf of the Township Committee and members of the Milburn Township community, on this third day of October 2023, extend thanks and appreciation for the good deeds and services rendered by Kim Sleeman and the Warehouse, New Jersey for their dedication to helping individuals and families.
I have a question for you. For all the lovely people that are in the room this evening and everybody who's listening at home and on video. If perchance somebody has something that they'd like to donate to you in town, they're redecorating or they're going through things, it's just mostly furniture, is that correct? Only furniture. How do they reach you?
Honestly, the best way is to reach out to myself. The number's on the website, www.thewarehousenj.org. And you can send me an email or you can text me.
Perfect.
Send me photos of what you want and we'll come pick it up.
So www.thewarehousenj.org is the way to reach out to Kim.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to reports. No, no. We're not going to reports. We're going to Fire Prevention Week. All right. Deputy Mayor Vinayak and the fine firefighters of Milburn Township. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Oops.
What do you want?
Good evening. I'm here to give this proclamation to Captain. Whereas, as the Township of Milburn, New Jersey is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our township, and whereas cooking brings family and friends together, provides an outlet for creativity and can be relaxing, and whereas cooking fires are the #1 cause of home fires and home injuries, and whereas unattended cooking is the leading cause of cooking fires and deaths. And whereas Melbourne's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas the 2023 Fire Prevention Week theme, Cooking Safety Starts with You, pay attention to fire prevention, effectively serves to remind Melbourne Township it is important to cook with caution and following a few safety tips you can prevent these fires. And now therefore be it resolved that the Melbourne Township Committee, on behalf of the residents, does hereby proclaim October 8th through 14th, 2023 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the township, and urge all the people of Melbourne to plan and practice cooking safety. You can prevent most cooking fires and burns, help keep your family safer with some simple but effective tips for Fire Prevention Week 2023, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Melbourne and our mutual aid fire and emergency services. Captain, would you want to say anything?
Thank you. Give it to somebody here.
Give it to Mr. Larissy, yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Larissy, you're going to help us. Okay.
Do we want the other firemen to join in the photo?
Guys.
Gentlemen?
That's all right. It's all Jack.
It's all Jack? All right.
It's,
Go ahead,
it's-
Wanamaker.
it's my honor for you to come over. No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. All right. Now we get to go to reports. Mr. Cohen, do you have any reports for us this evening?
A couple of brief ones. First of all, this week is National Banned Books Week, and I encourage everybody to stop by the Melbourne Library, as they have done an exhibit about the unfortunate situation we're in, where people are trying to ban books, across the country. And it's a very dangerous thing, unfortunately, but this is the week to increase awareness of what's going on. So that's from them. As for the Arboretum, I have mentioned the cornhole event, which is going to be on October 22nd. I would also like to mention that they're holding a holiday shopping event on October 26th at the Arboretum from 11 to 6. So they have a bunch of vendors coming in selling gifts, selling products that would be useful for the upcoming holidays.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we did have someone try and ban books at the Melbourne Library.
There was a request.
Yes,
There was a
okay,
request. to
thank
have
you.
this book banned at the-
Okay,
the-
just so everybody's aware of that.
That's right.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Vinaya, do you have anything to share with us this evening, sir?
Yes, Mayor. We had a parking utility meeting a couple of weeks ago. And I'm glad to actually announce, and it was announced, I think, earlier also, we had paid off our debt for the parking deck that we took. It was a little over $6 million. Overall, as of this year, we are debt free. So we'll have some money from the parking utilities to do some maintenance work or do some new projects towards our parking lot. So that's a good news. We have also talked about a little bit about the parking that is right here, to see the parking or mobile circulation here of the cars, because when the cars are entering from Essex Street, it's kind of dangerous. So the parking utility committee is looking at what the potential solution could be. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Romano?
Yes, thank you. Just talking on parking a little bit, I just wanted to remind property owners and business owners and their employees to not take up the parking spots on Milburn Avenue. I get a lot of residents' phone calls and emails. The same cars are parked on Milburn Avenue all day long. And it's obvious that it's people working in the stores, and that's really not fair to have your customers circling for parking spots when you're parked in front of your store. Just a reminder, Explorer's annual meeting is on Thursday, October 19th at 5:30 here in Town Hall, also via Zoom. And a reminder to business owners that you can't leave garbage bags on the street. Your garbage must be in a labeled receptacle, and you should have secured a private hauler by now. and you can't put your trash out more than 12 hours before pickup. That's all I have.
Thank you.
That applies to residents too, and it
Yes,
doesn't,
it
yes, so.
It does.
Mr. Mariziti, do you have anything to share with us this evening, sir?
I do, Mayor.
Well,
I
please
have
do.
A couple of different litigation matters. I'll take them one by one. The first is a new development in the Bear Properties case. That's the one that challenges the establishment of the SID. And as we've talked many times, there has been an order for the discovery of the leases in question. They haven't been produced yet. There will be a in-person case management conference next week at the historic courthouse on October 12th. Then the other matter that has been reported through Matt Giacobbe has to do with the Feld versus Milburn Township, which also included many of you at this dais and Mr. McDonald as defendants in that case. The court granted a motion for summary judgment dismissing the case with prejudice, which means that any of the issues that were mentioned in that litigation cannot be brought back to the courtroom again through the entire controversy doctrine. That case involved a variety of complaints by Mr. Feld about his constitutional rights being violated, civil rights being violated, allegations that the bond ordinance having to do with flex parking was improperly adopted because then Mayor Pupus had a business nearby. All of those issues have been resolved by that motion granting summary judgment. Today, I received a packet of information from Mr. Feld seeking to filing a motion, I should say, asking for reconsideration, vacation, alteration, amendment, and summary judgment of the summary judgment matter. There's briefs and a number of documents that will be submitted to the court in that regard. And then lastly.
Is that like a second bite at the apple?
It is an attempt to ask the court to reconsider, and in that sense, it's a second bite at the apple. There may be other bites at the apple by way of an appeal at some point, but this is the first attempt to ask the court to change its opinion, modify the judgment, not really to make, as I understood it, any substantive different determinations, but to end up with an order which would call some of the issues having been mooted because of changes in the procedure by the township committee, and also clarifying that there was no ruling on the allegation of a Whispering Woods type hearing, which is a legal reference to a type of hearing that you have after a planning board decision is challenged, or zoning board decision is challenged, and then in order to settle that case, there has to be a hearing, which was of the type that was held in the Whispering Woods case. There's an attempt to apply that same argument to the settlement of the affordable housing litigation that took place some years ago. So the request is to exclude that from a ruling in this case. I did not appear in that case, so I'm going on the basis of the documents and the report by Mr. Giacobbe. I've read the briefs, I've read the pleadings, I've read the final judgment, and I've read the pleadings that were filed today as well. Then lastly, and more recently, this afternoon at 2 o'clock, as I mentioned at the last meeting, there was a case management conference before the judge involving the order of compliance and repose concerning the affordable housing litigation that has been going on. And that order of compliance and repose that was issued by the judge in May, as you recall, you were present, as was Committeewoman Romano and Mr. McDonald, was conditioned upon several things happening subsequently. And one of those things was two of those things were the adoption of spending plan. I think it was Mr. McDonald was present. I'm not involved in those issues, but the judge asked that those documents be be considered at the next meeting of the Township Committee. But what I have been involved in, and that part of the order in May that fell to me to deal with is the issues regarding the redevelopment agreement and so on with RPM. And the order required that there be a redevelopment plan adopted to provide for the construction of the 75-unit, 100% affordable project on a portion of the DPW site. That I was happy to report that action was taken by the Township Committee. The rest of the report I had was not so pleasantly received by the court because, as I think I mentioned last week, in another week, the deadline for 2 other steps to be taken is next week. And one of them is the completion of the negotiation of the redevelopment agreement with RPM and the adoption of that by a resolution of the Township Committee. We are close, but there are still about 10 issues that have to be resolved in the negotiations with RPM. And I explained to the judge the issue with respect to the remediation alternatives and how today there was the final report of the survey that was to be submitted. She was very interested in all of that conversation, concerned about the time it would take if the decision were to be made to do a more enhanced remediation. She did mention that in her experience, the capping and the environmental control, the engineering controls are the standard that she has seen, but she's allowing the township an opportunity to make a different decision. But she very much wants that decision to be made by the next meeting of the Township Committee so that we can proceed with the completion of the negotiation of that agreement. She has required me to submit reports to her about the progress of all of that, how that's going and what's happening. And she's also ordered that the redevelopment agreement be adopted by a resolution of the Township Committee not later than December 6th, 2023. And that an ordinance to adopt the financial agreement, which is not yet negotiated. That's the statutory term for an agreement that deals with payment of taxes provision of that a pilot agreement, I'll call it, ordinance be adopted not later than February 15th, 2024. And she's made it very clear to all present that she's going to keep a hard leash on all of this and make sure it all happens because she did express her disappointment that it's taken so long. And Mr. McDonald was there, and if I've left anything out, please. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Marizini. Mr. McDonald, you'd be so kind as to report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a few reports. Just to touch on the parking ad hoc meeting that took place last Wednesday, September 27th, and supplement the reports of Deputy Mayor Benayak and Committee Person Romano. Quite a bit was discussed at the meeting. One of the things that was discussed was a recommendation to pilot Uber Eats and DoorDash driver parking and some severely underutilized parking spaces on Essex Street that are currently marked for business parking that are not used. We will be in the process of purchasing some signage and creating somewhat of a almost like an airport waiting location for these Uber Eats drivers and DoorDash drivers that seem to wait in various spots and see if that has any positive impact on some of those concerns. We also discussed the angled parking trial. This was in the minds of those that were involved in this meeting, a successful trial of angled parking with no reported accidents from the police department as a result of the spaces, decreased double parking and decreased enforcement of double parking, which also intrudes upon businesses at times. So with that, I would say that it would be our recommendation that it become a permanent fixture, this angled parking by the deli, and that perhaps even to explore further additional angled parking on Milburn Avenue on that side of the street. as Deputy Mayor Benayak indicated, we talked about Lot 5 circulation. Just a reminder to all those out there and those drivers that it is a violation to utilize a parking lot to circumvent a traffic signal or a particular traffic right of way. And so those individuals who go through Lot 5 at quite a speed, just keep that in mind, and that we are going to explore whether the circulation in that parking lot needs to be revised.
And lot 5 is right here.
Yes, the Dunkin' Donuts Town Hall parking lot. Yep.
And one in front.
In addition, there will be a modification to the Chapter 7 ordinance that will be presented to the Township Committee, addressing some various issues. This is kind of an ordinance that is becoming an annual tradition with changes that need to be made. In particular, we're going to be looking at the structure of business permit parking to help facilitate that a little bit better. My second report is on Mr. Beneke. An article regarding Bob Beneke, who is a consultant that was retained by the Township of Milburn. His role in Montclair came to our attention late last week. Mr. Beneke was engaged by the township in April of 2022 for his expertise in redevelopment, affordable housing, and low-income housing tax credit processes. Mr. Beneke had entered into a settlement with the SEC for his failure to register as a municipal financial advisor. This is not the role that Mr. Beneke was engaged for by Milburn Township. To date, we have paid Mr. Beneke $8,775. Given this news, I would just ask that the Township Committee consider or provide some guidance in whether to sever our relationship with Mr. Beneke, and Mr. Laracy and I will look for a new consultant in this regard, or whether, given that role was not the role that we had engaged Mr. Beneke, he did not require a license or a registration with the SEC for the roles that we involved him in, whether to continue the relationship. But it is something that we do need guidance on, given the news that was provided to us. My next report is on the survey. And given the, so just an update on the survey, we've received in the survey, let me just say, is about the remediation options at 9 Main Street, the 100% affordable development. To date, we received 195 total responses, 65 asking for capping, 83 for the full excavation, 37 that voted neither, and 10 that did not respond to the question. It would be my suggestion that, given the timeframe set by the courts and that the committee needs to make a decision by October 17th, that we leave the survey open for another week. We did get it out. It was only out for a week, and allow for those that voted neither, which is not really an option for this township committee, to either modify their vote or not vote at all. And perhaps we would be able to get additional input from the community. Just a reminder to residents that the all-way stop is now active at Cypress and Ridgewood. That went in today and was installed. There are variable message boards alerting drivers to the change in traffic pattern. Just ask that everybody uses caution in and around this area. Whenever there is a traffic change, it does take a little while to get used to it. So just please use caution in the area of Cypress and Ridgewood. And lastly, I just want to report that our fine assistant administrator, Jesse Molman, will be moving on from the municipality. Jesse is now going to be, starting next week, the borough administrator of Fanwood. Jesse has been with the township for close to 13 years in some capacity or another, as an intern, an administrative analyst, and then as the assistant administrator. Grew up in town, is a resident of town. Jesse is I think if I said he is an asset, I would be understating it quite a bit. Has been a valuable resource to me, and I wish him nothing but the best, and the best of luck in his new endeavor, his new career, and just hope that everybody will extend the same to him. Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, Jess. The only report I have is that I am the liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission. I know that everyone's received notices about the Historic Preservation Commission. They've not presented anything to the TC as of yet, so we don't have anything to speak about until we get presented what their reports are. And I believe that'll be getting done on Thursday. The HPC meets here at Town Hall at 7:30, I want to say. So just so you're aware of that, we've not seen anything and we won't see anything till after everything's been voted on by the HPC. They're their own municipal land use board, as is planning, as is zoning, as we're our own board. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you. And now,
Mayor, can I just interrupt?
yes, you may.
So I would just for a bit of guidance from the dais with the township committee, if everyone's okay with keeping the survey open for another week.
Yes.
And also a bit of direction on Mr. Beneke, if you would like Mr. Larry Sinai to look into other consultants too.
Yes.
What is your recommendation?
I think at this point in time, Mr. Beneke has been a valuable resource, but unfortunately, it's hard to, while we can differentiate here, it'll be hard for others to differentiate his role with the municipality and his role in other municipalities as a financial advisor. I think Mr. Beneke is a valuable resource, but I think given the already contentious process that is affordable housing, that it would be best to find other resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and whether you're a Milburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please don't provide your full address. Seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you're attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there's 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or debate. It's not what we do. It's a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. After the conclusion of public comment period, and if they wish to, professionals and committee members may respond to comments made by the public. Members of the public are welcome to contact the township or the township committee at any time outside of our business meetings for requests for information or with any questions. A reminder, we're all neighbors and personal attacks are not encouraged. So I will now open the public comment period. Mr. Moriali.
Hi, my name is Jay Moriali and I'm a township resident. And tonight I've got a bunch of kudos, some of which are belated due to time constraints. First, to the organizers and volunteers for Rocktoberfest. Awesome work. I think it was Carrie who said that this would be the best ever, and I agree. My wife and I enjoyed our time at the event, and that it was for the benefit of the schools made it all the more enjoyable. Second, to the Park District on the care and condition of the Par 3, kudos. This season was one of the best that I can ever recall. And it felt like usage was at an all-time high. It is truly a gem in our community. Third, for all the efforts around pedestrian and vehicular safety, thank you. I see more of the flashing crosswalk signs, and I think that's great. Also, the 2 new signals at Hobart and White Oak Ridge and Baltusrol and Milburn. I go through one of those or the one or other of those daily, and many days I go through both. Next, I'd like to extend a thank you to David Morrow for his piece and Tap Into regarding the township's form of government and views on nonpartisan elections. I asked a prior township committee a year or 2 ago to authorize a charter commission to conduct a study to determine whether our current form of government, which does not allow which requires partisan elections, whether that is still the best choice for Milburn or not. This was last done 50 years ago, and many things have changed. And I would be interested in hearing from all of the candidates running in the election for TC in this upcoming election to hear their views on whether a charter commission is warranted. Finally, I'd like to thank the TC for putting the question of excavate or camp to the public. I voted to excavate after some research, including speaking with professional environmental engineers about the alternatives, though they did warn that these projects often have cost overruns. Regardless of whether an apartment complex is built on the site or not, I think we owe it not only to future generations, but to our current township employees that work day in and day out at that facility. Not to mention the school children that Dr. Kung pointed out are 300 feet away in the middle school to clean out the contaminated areas. Let's not kick this can down the road. As to the point made at the end of the last meeting, I agree with those on the committee that said something to the effect, we are damned if we do, we are damned if we don't, in seeking community input via an online survey. There is no perfect method for soliciting input from the community, so thank you for at least trying. And kudos to Mr. Molman. And with that, have a great night.
Thanks, Mr. Morale.
Good evening, Charles Bambara, a Milburn Township resident for 27 years. I was absent out of town on business during the last meeting when remediation was brought up. I'm a chemical engineer, I've been practicing for nearly 55 years now. And I urge you to go for the excavation option. Capping, as the gentleman before me just mentioned, is kicking the can down the road. It's irresponsible, it's cheap, and that's why it's done. And that's why it's allowed. It's not the correct or the right thing to do in this circumstance. My daughter in 2017, when she was a senior at Milburn High School, analyzed the drinking water at Milburn High School. She was a student participant in the Milburn Township Environmental Committee. She found arsenic, heavy metals, PCBs, and polycyclic aromatic organic compounds, same ones that were found in the dump. If we try to entomb them with concrete, it is not a permanent solution. It's just passing that down to future generations. I don't think we want to leave our children with that kind of a legacy. This is the time to clean it up once and for all and excavate. I know it's going to take more, but that is the right thing to do. Lastly, I have a couple of other comments. I see you're voting on tonight on the water bank project, and I spoke a couple of meetings ago, I think it was in June, about the dam in Taylor Park. That's not the correct dam. It does not have floodgates. That will continue to be a problem until you replace that dam with the correct dam. So if whatever projects you're considering for flood control, please, I urge you, reopen that dam. It's the wrong thing to have there. I asked about an environmental impact statement for relocation of the DPW yard. I was told it wasn't needed. I don't think that's the case. I'd like to see some consideration given to runoff from a town refuse collection site into the Canoe Brook #1 reservoir, which is within 200 yards of that site. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Van Boom.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld, Short Hills resident. Theme tonight should be the fox guarding the hen house. Many of you, we heard the presentation reports. There are two things that have happened. If people watch today's case management conference, the judge ripped Milburn apart. She was upset that you did not report back what was happening. There's questions of why certain ministerial acts were not taken, those being the little management things. But more importantly, look at the bill list. How much money have we paid this man to negotiate the redevelopment plan for the last 2 years? Who had to tell him that we had to do a redevelopment plan before you could sell a property for $1? It's been the citizens who have been holding this man to the iron. As to what happened in Feld versus Milburn, the judge reprimanded the town for calling me, their attorney just told me, says, put my credibility in and called me a fool. The judge had to reprimand him. And during the whole thing, the judge says, I can't give you relief, Mr. Phil. You were successful. Because in 2021, they took our rights to speak. But because you filed this lawsuit, and after the first motion to dismiss was denied, that you changed your behavior. He says, I can't give you relief because you got your relief already. You made them change their behavior. And all you had to say was, Mr. Phil, the only reason you brought this lawsuit is to get attorney's fees. That was insulting. And if you read my papers, you'll see what happened. We lost judicial goodwill. As to tonight, first of all, Alex, Mr. Beneke, if I understand, was giving advice to us to select RPM in around 2021 when we had to do the other parts, that the mayor retained him without permission or authorization. You didn't take the official action until April 2022, but he was giving advice in 2021. As to the bill list, there's a discrepancy first about sources of funds. On the cover page, it talks about monies coming from a PATFA2 fund, but when you look at the printout, it's missing. Why? Again, looking at the legal fees. Legal municipality is always an issue where people are going to it. Why are lame ducks, two lame duck council members going? We should be paying for, we know we're gonna have 2 new members come January. Shouldn't we be paying for them to be trained? Why are we paying for lame ducks to go to this boondoggle of the legal municipality? Alex, yesterday, the local finance notice 223-17 was issued as about best practices inventory. It says it has to be presented to the public by November 3rd. We don't have a meeting until like the end of November. We just pushed it back. When do you think you will have responses for this year's best practices, and when will it be posted so we comply? Because there's a lot of questions that tells us what to do. And over the past, I've been saying we haven't complied, such as we didn't adopt an inclusionary zoning. We didn't adopt the trust fund monies.
Thank
But
you,
if we-
Mr. Feld. Thank you.
I'll see you later. Thank you.
We'll be here. Get that published. Did we get that transcript? Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, Ben Stoller, Milburn resident, also a candidate for TTC. But I'm speaking tonight as a concerned Milburn resident to express my deep disappointment and frustration regarding the impending passage of the historical preservation designation in our township. It has come to my attention that this decision to nominate these districts without any opportunity for public comment and with a complete lack of communication regarding the benefits and potential consequences associated with such a designation. As a resident who takes great pride in our community, my own home is actually designated as historical because it was built in 1872. I firmly believe in the importance of preserving our historical heritage. Without adequate communication, however, and engagement with the community, residents have been denied the opportunity to voice their concerns, ask questions, and fully understand the potential benefits and drawbacks associated with this designation. Accountability to residents is a fundamental principle of democratic governance, and it is disheartening to see this principle has been overlooked by this board and township committee and the HPC committee as well. As constituents, we expect our elected representatives to act in our best interest and to involve us in decisions that impact our lives and properties. Unfortunately, the impending passage of the historical preservation designation has undermined this trust. Therefore, today I respectfully request that the Township Committee and HPC Committee immediately take the following steps: provide a public statement acknowledging the lack of transparency and public involvement, conduct an open public forum, which is not going to happen on Thursday because that's when they're going to vote to pass it. Review the designation impact on property owners and including potential benefits and those restrictions, if any. It's my sincere hope that you take this concern seriously and take immediate action. I think it's disingenuous by our mayor to say that she is not aware of these actions that are occurring because she is the liaison. Is this once again her shirking her fiduciary responsibility, or does she know what's going on? I don't know. I implore you to tell us. Once again, Jesse, congratulations. And we believe that's it. Thank you.
This is short. Debbie Frank, Milburn resident. I keep hearing about income segregated housing. I think it's fair to say that Milburn Township, for the most part, is itself income segregated. And if you track the selling prices of homes, it's getting more so. It's just that access to current housing has an income floor, while affordable housing has a ceiling. If that were not the case, we might not now be in the position we are. But here we are, and in the light of Mount Laurel and legal challenges arising from it, we're here to stay. So we need, it seems to me, to consider how best to accommodate it. That leaves us, I think, with only a few possibilities. One of which is the affordable housing agreement we now have. Another one is to expand our reliance on new apartment buildings with some affordable housing included, which would mean building more of them in order to provide us with enough affordable apartments. There is another option, which would not concentrate affordable housing in one place. We could rezone the township, allowing more density in more areas, and therefore distribute affordable housing more widely, which would reduce its concentration in only one place. I don't see any other options. Affordable of the three. Affordable housing is coming here. The only question we have is how to absorb it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Chara Goyal, Melbourne resident since 2016. And I wanted to say transparency and honesty and respect for fellow residents is very important for a town. In regards to speaking with many residents, I can see this was endangered. And also I wanted to bring up the details which I wanted to share across when I spoke to many residents regarding the proposals for new historic Nottingham Marywood Historical District. I believe open communication, honesty, accountability is needed in every strategic decision-making on behalf of every resident to come up with a plan, which is in best interest of a town and our community. I am thankful to the TC for allowing our Historic Preservation Committee to come up with the best informed plan. And I please humbly ask all the residents to come to the public forum, which is being organized by Historic Preservation Committee on Thursday, and voice out together our opinions and our concerns, which will be helpful for the best interest of a town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Leah Cruz, Short Hills resident. Thank you. I just wondered if you could shed any more light on the mail theft situation. I was browsing the police blotter, as I like to do. The 3 days after two individuals were arrested, it says approximately 4:12 a.m., 3 suspects entered the loading dock of the Short Hills Post Office. Over 7,000 pieces of mail were stolen. I was shocked. Is the mail not kept in a locked area overnight? I mean, I know it's not Melbourne Township's, it's a federal thing, but I mean, that was shocking. Has something changed? Have these people been caught? Should I stop sending mail? I mean, I have been doing more online banking, but this is concerning. So I was hoping you could shed more light on that if you have any more information on that. And then I also just really encourage, what I would hope you could encourage the police to, I've brought this up before, the cars that are driving around with the tinted windows in the front and the back and even the front mirror. First of all, I don't know how you could see out of those. It's illegal. It's really unsettling to be walking around and you can't see who is driving a car. God forbid they hit me, or if I saw them, commit a crime or something, you can't even describe the occupant of the vehicle. I know the police do not like to proactively ticket those people, and I know why, but I think that they really should start doing that. And also, New Jersey has a law that you are supposed to have 2 license plates. I was driving from Walgreens to my house. I saw 7 cars with rear New Jersey plates and no front license plates. Again, how are you supposed to report if you see something if they don't have a front license plate? I mean, I think it's these little things that might help deter people. Maybe not, but it's a start. So thank you.
Thank you, Leah. It's a bug. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I was like, I got him.
Good evening. My name is Richard Freed. I'm a Milburn Township resident. Been here for over 30 years. And I'm here, as many of my neighbors and colleagues are, to draw more attention to what we believe was a very unfair process in trying to designate the Marywood Nottingham district as an historical district. I won't reiterate what others have said before in terms of feeling left out of the process, how this was done, why after 40 somewhat years, the Township Committee or the HPC has decided that now is the time to designate more historic districts. Seems like it was done under the cover of darkness without any visibility. I would not expect something like that to happen in a township such as ours, where again, I've happily lived for over 30 years. I'm also noticing from a technical standpoint that when we did get, at least when I got my letter out of the blue, it talked about the procedures and the process. So I went online to look at the Milburn regulations, the zoning ordinances, and talked about that the Historical Commission prepares a report, and then there's a ordinance that says what the report has to contain. And then within 20 days of that report, it goes and gets voted on, or there's a procedure to nominate a historical district. One of the things that's required to be in the report are photographs of each of the house in the affected area. There were 4 reports for 4 different districts. 3 of them, just from my quick look, seem to comply with, at least on its face, with the requirements. The 4th one, the so-called Marywood Nottingham district, did not contain any of the photographs in either the online report or the printout that was available here at the town hall. So from that standpoint, I don't believe a proper report has been prepared, so that a meeting on Thursday would not be proper for this. I also just happened to go online yesterday, and there was a revised report that, lo and behold, did contain the photographs. I don't know the process of that, why that was done, but I don't believe that you can, or whoever prepared it, can just slide it in there and say, this is now a proper report. So it reverts back to when the first one was done. So putting the merits and the process of how this was done, I don't believe that a township committee or his HPC meeting would be properly held on Thursday, and has to wait for the 20 days to elapse before this could even be considered. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
Mr. Freed.
Stephanie Morgan, Milburn resident for over 30 years. I want to talk a little bit about the survey that we all received. I completed mine, as did my husband. So we've been asked to respond to a survey asking whether the DPW site should be capped or cleaned. And I think that anybody who's not a professional in an appropriate field, who hasn't had extensive real estate development experience, is likely to either vote 1, to save the money by capping, or 2, to remove all contaminated material. And the logic for 1, obviously, I think, is cost. And the second is concern about future financial and legal risk. There's a high level of distrust in our officials in general. And I don't think this should taint our view of the professionals' findings and recommendations. Failure to test, report, remediate in accordance with DEP requirements can result in the loss of an engineer's license and potential consequences for which he would not be insured. And as explained by our counsel, liability passes to the developer as part of the agreement when we sell the property. The differential also, as I listened at the last hearing, is still a little in cost, is still a little confusing to me. The differential to haul the material away from the site versus capping could actually have be a much larger differential. The cost of removing all contaminated material has potential to grow. Hauling and tipping, which is dumping, varies with the cost of gas, the distance of the locations that you can take the material to, and dumps are ever changing their fees for tipping. Capping can even be less than the estimate that was presented, because the question I didn't hear answered, and maybe it was, but I didn't hear it, is what the actual incremental cost of capping is. That is, there are ordinary site costs that the developer is going to incur. What I didn't hear was what's that actual incremental cost over and above what the site work would cost without having to do the incremental work for the capping, removal of some of the spoils as a result of putting footings and foundations in and so on. I don't know that number, the capping number, may actually be considerably less when you actually look at the delta on the additional work for the capping versus what ordinary site work would be. So it's difficult to make a decision when the facts are unclear and there's so much emotion swirling around the facts. And I, just like all of my neighbors, are concerned about what happens on that site. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes, and I voted actually to cap the site. However, I'm suggesting that capping would be okay, in my opinion, if further testing doesn't reveal contaminants which the DEP deem have to be removed in order to make it meet residential standards. The second is that the development agreement with RPM has to require strict adherence to the DEP's approved plan, perform all the initial capping work and ongoing maintenance in compliance with the standards required by DEP, and that they pay for and maintain an environmental insurance policy. I also think that our council should explore his assessment of our having environmental insurance. I hope that sharing my thoughts and conclusions might be helpful in
Thank you, Ms.
others
Morgan.
assessing
Thank you.
the matter.
Thank you much. Thank you.
My name is Greg Cam. I'm a resident of the Nottingham Marywood Proposed Historic District. I've lived currently in the town since 2005. I've owned 2 homes in the district. Looking at the district, I see no valuable reason, based on my experience living in the home, that why this would benefit my home or my community. I've seen none of the homes not being taken care of in a way that would respect the community as it is where I live, through the streets that I live on, at least. So I would implore the town to vote down any change for the Marywood Nottingham current zoning. And thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Good
Anurag Kalyan. I'm a resident in the township, and our property falls in the proposed Marywood Nottingham Historic District. We bought the house in 2019. We did not know anything about historic designation of our neighborhood or the home. I'm here to share my concerns and object to the designation of our neighborhood as historic. One of the key pillars of our amazing capital economy, vibrant society, and great country are the rights of ownership of private property. These rights are not only the foundation of propriety, but of the freedom itself. This expansion of historical districts will seriously compromise our rights as owners of private property and what we do there. Despite these serious implications to our rights, it is being rushed through. Seemingly, it's being jammed through the process, and we are not being given due process. Even the purpose of doing this is not very clear to us. And you've heard some of the process issues, some of the gaps in the report. One of the things we got from the HPC was FAQs. And I'll quote a line from those FAQs, and it should open up everybody's eyes. This is the document from HPC. In quotes, it also benefits the town, which may collect more in property taxes as the improved house rises in market value, making the tax burden a bit lighter for everyone else. Seriously? This is a reason in the FAQs. We are 153 properties in this particular district. What's the plan here? I don't know. If you read a couple of other bullet points. First bullet point in the summary of benefits. Preservation is a powerful tool in creating jobs, generating income, stimulating tax revenue, nurturing tourism. I don't see tourists in front of my house. I actually don't want tourists in front of my house. We already have crime in the community rising, by the way, and enhancing older cities. And that's the last point. By the way, where's the money going to come from? We will be paying for enhancing the beauty. Is the township sharing in our costs? No, I haven't heard any of that. There are figures, economic benefits of historic preservation in New Jersey. I'm sorry, this is Milburn Township. We are residents of New Jersey, yes, but we are not here to raise $300 million economy of New Jersey by supporting truckers who drive bricks and mortars into our town. So I would urge this township committee and the HPC to care about us. You are our representatives here. That commission is an appointed body. Mayor, you're a liaison on that body.
I'm
Please,
sorry, say that again?
you are on that HPC as a liaison.
Liaison, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So I would urge you to take our message to the commission if we are not given due process. Thank you.
Jesse, you want to go online? See who's up there? Can't see. Oh, go ahead, and then we'll go on. I'm sorry, I apologize. I
sorry.
didn't see you stand up, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm Ritesh Singh, resident of Short Hills. And I'm also here to protest against the HPC designation. And I have 3 reasons. First is the process. It has already been raised. I was here on Monday. I went there, looked at because I wanted to know what is in the file. The pictures are missing, and I need at least 20 days as given by the township process before any nomination happens. We are calling that meeting on Thursday an open forum. It's not an open forum because that day there is going to be our properties are going to be nominated and restrictions placed on them. And that is wrong. So it is not a forum for discussion. It is a forum where restrictions will be put on us. That's stated in the mail. So if you cannot stop the meeting, I suggest delay the meeting for 20 days. If you cannot stop the meeting, stop the nomination process. Or fire if they're not following process, fire you have nominated them, fire all of them. If they don't follow the township process, they are not competent, fire them. That's my suggestion. So that's point number 1.
Sir, we're up here. You want to talk to us up here?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
And by the way, no, I don't have any plan of running for anything.
You should. Come on.
Point number 2.
Why not?
Financial. They say value will increase of our houses. I say it will decrease. I went ahead and looked at 2 houses, both over 100-year-old, both just over 4,000 square feet. One historic, one not historic. I will not name because of public forum. I don't want to give address out here. The historic house sold December 21 for 27% less per square feet than non-historic house, both over 100-year-old. So somewhere 20% of the value of this house was less. There could be many reasons, but if one person is claiming that value increases in that letter, I believe it decreases. I believe there is a decrease of 15 to 20% in our values. I want town to appoint somebody who is capable of assessing the effect of this thing. I mean, this is the most valuable thing I have. And if 15-20% of its value is going to go away, I want somebody to go ahead and bring across 150 houses, this is around $300 million of assets, which will be impacted. So that's point number 2. Town should bring competent people to say what will be the financial impact to each individual house, because this is our most valuable asset. Third and final point that I have is the data is wrong. The stuff they have put on the others have pointed it out. I looked at my property, the room is wrong, other things are wrong on both the pages. They have 2 pages. So we should get a chance to approve our data before all this starts.
Thank
you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Kung. I'm a resident of Short Hills. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm not going to talk about the historic preservation issue. I'm just going to highlight a couple issues of transparency. I think it all ties together with the historic preservation issue as well. And I wasn't going to bring it up today, but since Mr. Moriali pointed out about the proximity of the middle school to the DPW site, I would like to remind the Township Committee that the initial report related to the environmental contaminants neglected to mention that there was a school within 200 feet of the site. Schools are considered sensitive receptors because of the age of the children within the school nearby. And so, that was left out of the report until I stood up here and pointed that out to the committee and requested that the LSRP revise his report to accurately reflect the truth. The other issue of transparency that I wanted to highlight tonight is the Milburn KPIs or key performance indicators on the website. I've asked about this several times before when inquiring about car thefts. I was reassured that this is, quote, the full accounting of all car thefts. Well, currently on the website, there's one car theft in August 2023, but I'm going to read 3 excerpts from the Milburn Police Blotter that indicate otherwise. On August 4th, Milburn PD responded to a Slayton Drive residence on a report of a burglary to the residence. The resident reported that unknown actors gained entry to her residence through an unlocked rear sliding glass door. The actors then stole her purse and iPad that was on the kitchen table near the rear door. The purse contained her vehicle's key fob. The actors then stole a 2019 Audi from the driveway. On August 18th, 2023 at 4:26 a.m., Milburn PD responded to a Deerfield Road residence on a report of a burglary to the residence. The resident reported that an unknown suspect entered the residence through an unlocked window. The actor stole the keys to a BMW X5 off the kitchen counter and then exited the residence via the rear door. The suspect then stole the parked BMW in the driveway. On August 29th, 2023 at 9 a.m., Milburn PD responded to Short Hills Garden Apartments on a report of a theft of a vehicle. The resident reported that sometime overnight, his rental car, a 2022 Kia, was stolen from the street in front of his apartment. He reported that the vehicle contained no keys and was locked at the time it was stolen. Apologize for reading so quickly. I did submit an OPRA request for all reports of car theft from 2021 to 2023, just to verify the summary statistics that were posted on the KPI website. But I happened to be stonewalled. I was first told that it would take 6 weeks to gather all of the files. And so I patiently waited 6 weeks. But when 6 weeks had elapsed, I was then told that I needed to pay in excess of $1,600 and wait an additional 10 business days for these reports to be redacted. So my question tonight is, why is it so difficult for residents to find out the true rate of car thefts in our community? Thank you.
Who do we have, Mr. Holman?
I'm unmuting myself. I would like to share my screen. Is that possible this evening?
No, it's not possible.
Ms. Best, that is not.
Can I ask you why it's not possible?
We don't do it, Ms. Best.
Okay, well, convenient for you. Okay, so I guess I'll read a prepared statement. I actually sent you copies of 2 videos taken from Fairfield Estates section on the road construction being done by Cifelli Brothers. And I also resent you a digital copy of the PowerPoint deck of all the PSC&G fails on our roadway construction. So I'll just read what I have prepared. You're welcome, Maggie. Thank you so much. I gave a digital PowerPoint deck in the last TC meeting showing examples of dangerous road hazards and poor construction practices by PSC&G, which the township chose not to pursue remediation of. I think seeing this deck would be helpful for all Milburn Township residents to see the low standards that are set by our township when doing any type of road construction project. There is no oversight going on at all. And Mr. McDonald, you openly confirmed the township is unable to supervise this construction process, that you don't have the time. Does that mean the rest of construction inspection processes are held to this standard, like when they put in my copper pipes in my house? Just curious. Have you seen the mess on Campbell Road in Glenwood? That's another Cifelli and Sons disaster fest. Look closely at the masonry work. Although you may make claims that all this has been remediated, Mr. McDonald, clearly no one has still come up and cleaned up any of this mess in the Fairfield section. I realize your standard is that it's okay to make a mess and clean it up months and months later, but construction doesn't work that way. You must keep construction areas neat and safe during construction within reason. The following is not safe, and the township completely is pretending these dangerous road positions don't exist is unacceptable. I would like to go over quickly what these issues are. Massive amounts of road debris, including asphalt, stone dust, quarter stone, sand, and mud. Irregular, crooked, raised, collapsed, and pitted asphalt patch jobs. Massive amounts of stone dust blown on people's homes, unpatched lawn restorations, road plates left for 5 months on end, construction equipment without reflective safety signs left all over the roadway, open holes without plates, tar on people's driveways, including mine, Cifelli and Sons placing curbstone at 10 to 12 inches high, causing drainage issues and depression on people's lawns. Curbstone set by town standards shouldn't be higher than 6 inches above grade, and it currently doesn't match the standards in the Fairfield Estate section. Cifelli and Sons cutting people's driveways 3 feet in, damaging a $17,000 to $25,000 asset. Cifelli and Sons damaging sprinkler systems. Cifelli and Sons placing many drain basins above grade. So much so at the bottom of Fairfield Road, there is like massive amounts of water down there. It doesn't even go into the drain. You bought a new drain and it doesn't work. It's freaking hilarious. And there's a bunch of them like that. And I have videos of everything. It's all documented. And I'm really annoyed that I have to live in this mess. So in addition to that, they don't understand the difference between finger painting with masonry and asphalt on curbstone and actually using like a trowel and properly doing mortar joints. Please fix that. I mean, it's pathetic. It's completely pathetic. It's a continuous mess. And I want to point out, if a child going down her little scooter or on their bike hits one of these 5-inch high, some of them are over 5 inches high, massive tar piles, and they go flying over their handlebars and break their neck, it is so on you, so on you. And I fully expect this to be done. And by the way, you can't do the roadway after November, Alex, because asphalt doesn't cure when it's below 50 degrees. So I don't know what your plan is for the winter, but you better figure something out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Molman, anyone else? Okay, great. Thank you, sir. No, I think there's somebody else up there.
While you're figuring that out.
Let's see what happens. Please. Someone coming?
Oops, hi there. Thanks, Jesse, for the second opportunity. I pressed the wrong button. So oodles to you, congratulations. I'd like to thank you for your time here at Milburn. And you never know, our paths might cross once again in Fanwood. So I wish you the best of luck. Mayor, the township attorney. I think that's a good thing, but thank you for the heckle. Mayor, the township attorney, Mr. Marazziti, keeps stating the plaintiffs in Bear property management litigations, failing to provide request. In fact, his statements are false. For the Bear property attorney has met with the township attorneys. However, they were not satisfied with the arrangements. The meeting had ended. Isn't that true, Mr. Marazziti? So for nearly 3 years now, the township keeps pushing this matter down the road. So can you please, Mayor, have Mr. Marazziti give an opinion as to why leases are relevant in a statutory interpretation issue? And what is the supporting case law? Thank you for your time. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Ms. Urso.
Hi, my name is Frank Sacamandi, and I'm a Short Hills resident. So tonight we heard some troubling news about Mr. Beneke. He's being sanctioned by the SEC, and I think this is definitely a cause for concern. How can the township trust the advice that he gave us regarding the 9 Main Street redevelopment if he can't even adhere to SEC guidelines? So, I would ask this township committee to review all the information he provided and figure out whether they need to get a different consultant involved to verify that the information he provided is accurate, because you guys are making decisions based on that information. So I think that's very important. Second, I want to thank Jay for standing up and asking where the township committee members and those running stand on whether we should have nonpartisan local elections. I can say for myself and my running mate that we both very strongly believe that residents should have a choice to move to nonpartisan local elections. And in fact, we put out a press release to that effect last week. I'm also pleased to see that there are a lot more faces in the room tonight. Unfortunately, I'm troubled by the circumstances which brought them out. Many of the residents of Marywood Nottingham are understandably frustrated about the lack of transparency regarding the HPC process that's currently going on. And I think that this is yet another example of our local government operating in the shadows and not properly engaging residents far enough in advance before taking actions that are going to affect them. I could understand why many of these residents are upset. They got a letter in the mail that says in X number of days, there's going to be a vote on whether, there's going to be restrictions placed on how they can use their property. For many people in town, their home is their most valuable asset. And, I think that this township committee really needs to work extra hard to make sure that they inform residents when things like this are going to be happening and to seek out the opinions of those residents and also to make sure that all of their questions are answered. I don't remember recalling any public information sessions about the HPC process for this neighborhood. If there were, it seems like these residents certainly weren't aware of it. So this township committee needs to do a much better job of keeping residents engaged and making sure they understand what's going on and understand their rights and, getting their input. I also found it troubling that many of the residents brought up deficiencies in the data and the reports associated with this process. And unfortunately, this is something that we have seen before. As Dr. Kung pointed out, there's incorrect or inaccurate crime data on the website. We've seen with the 9 Main Street dump environmental report that there were backdated documents at times and there were missing and incomplete pieces of information. So this is not an uncommon occurrence, and this township committee really needs to do a better job of making sure that all data they post publicly is complete and accurate.
Thank you, Mr.
very much.
Sacramento. See someone else up there. Oh, okay, yes.
I'm short, I know.
No. I was looking this way and didn't see you come up.
Deepsika Chatterjee here, Short Hills homeowner and also homeowner in this potential historic district. As is already evident, the homeowners whose homes are coming under this potential historic district are not happy. There was no consultation with the impacted homeowners, and neither was this voice made through a ballot vote, which should have been the case. The boundaries were created whimsically. So unless there's some kind of support provided to the homeowners, there's a lot of discontent here. And I thank Ben and Frank and Charu today for raising their voices along with us. I'm a designer and I'm a realtor. We bought a 100-year-old Tudor that we renovated for 6 months and extended on with the appropriate permits. It was a lot of work. We tried to maintain the style by adding brickwork and matching colors. Honestly, there was so much work and cost that went into it and required considering and reconsidering, plus additional labor cost. But we didn't want to demo, so we retained the old 100-year-old character as well. The problem is modern materials, and you know this, Mayor Wiggins, and old materials don't match either. We have flat clay tiles on the main part of the house. I did a lot of research. It took almost 6 weeks to figure this out. To match that on the newer part of the house, remember my design training and patience as a result, there was only one company that makes these flat clay tiles in the US. It was completely unrealistic for us to use that in the newer part of the house. And we would have to buy 2 roofs worth of tiles in order to use them. Sometimes it's better to use modern materials. This is me speaking from a homeowner perspective who has done the work. Maintaining a historic and bucolic look is unrealistic without the right planning. While as a prior Bergen County homeowner, my husband and I looked at houses in northern Bergen County and Short Hills, but we decided to move to Short Hills We could have moved to a competing Bergen County town such as Ridgewood, Glen Rock, Fairlawn, or others without such imposing historic demarcations. In future, potential buyers like us with young families and little time on one's hands would be turned away from such a tourist-friendly district because of such encroachments such as these. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Sherman, I think was on.
Wait, I just have one thing to say.
No, you'll need to wait.
Oh.
Thank you.
Good evening, Sarah Sherman, resident. I think it's time for a compliment. I would like to say thank you to the OEM team for their work addressing the flood threat last week. Residents heeded the warnings and many people moved their cars to higher ground and took necessary precautions. There was a great deal of anxiety in the community last weekend, maybe not in your neighborhood, but certainly here in South Mountain. If the weather system had been a few miles further west, we would have had another Ida event. That is evident from the levels of rainfall and flooding in parts of New York City. To Mayor Miggins, if it is your email to the county regarding the funding for the East and West Branch gauges, which were supposed to be cut off a few days ago, thank you. Something worked. I was hearing from people who don't even live in this area who follow the gauges and were interested in knowing if the funding would be continued. I'll point out to everybody that the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee continues to work on solutions to benefit downtown and the 4 vulnerable neighborhoods that are in this township. As always, I encourage everyone to buy flood insurance. The hurricane season still has 2 months to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman.
Hi.
Good evening.
Richard Seibert, Township resident. I've been coming to meetings now for about a year. And I just want to say it's very refreshing to see all the intelligent people that sit on this side of the room and speak. So in November, there's an election taking place. 2 of the candidates are sitting here. Three, excuse me. Ben Stoller, Frank Sacamante, and Sharu Goel. Think twice, vote once. You get 1 precious vote this time. You've watched, in 1 meeting, you watched what takes place here. Nobody listens to you. You just spoke. You spoke, but nobody listened. Believe me, nobody listened.
Mr. Siebert, don't you do our speaking first, sir. We haven't finished this
Excuse me?
evening yet. We have not finished this
Oh,
evening.
you're
We
going
let
to-
everybody speak, as you know,
And then you're going to
and then
answer.
everybody else responds to that. That's right, sir.
Okay,
So don't ever do our speaking first. Thank you.
I still have some time left. right?
Yes, you do.
All right, well, again, November 7th, there's an election. And we'll see what happens. See what happens.
Thank you. Jesse, anyone else? I will now close public comment period. Would anyone like to address anything that was said this evening? Deputy Mayor Banayak, I'll start with you.
Sure, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, thank you all for coming here. First time I heard about designation of HPC was also from the email that I received from residents. And I got a bunch of those emails, along with the letter that was signed by all the residents that lived in that area. And thank you for reaching out. I don't know why you think that we have made up our mind to pass that, for which I didn't even know about. At least I'm talking for myself. So people who are talking about TC made up their mind, at least for me, they're lying or they're spreading misinformation out there. I'm a resident in town as well. First, I'm a resident and a taxpayer. I'm exactly like you. I have 2 kids in the Milburn School District. So what is not good for you is also not good for me. And I am here to vote on your behalf. Whether I vote yes, I will give a reason. If I vote no, I will give a reason. But the first time I got to know about this was also from the email. So there is a process that is broken. If HPC is touching one land and they are sending their recommendation, great. But if they're sending mails out to 150 residents, I think they should first inform us and get the consensus too from here when there are 150 homes or even more. I think it should be a standard process, like more than 5 homes is multifamily home. If there are more than 5 homes that are being impacted by historic preservation, it needs to be first get a consensus of RTC, or at least let us know what is going on. We shouldn't be hearing from town resident when the things are done by the committee. So I'm very devastated and disappointed with that process, what HPC have done. And truly, whether they're doing it for good reasons or not good reasons, my vote with this right now is no, flat out no, because the process is not followed, at least to my contentness. And then I applaud you guys coming in here, but please understand, if someone is telling you that TC has made their mind up, one of the TC member here didn't even know about this. Okay, so I'm telling you on my behalf only, I don't talk for others. They can talk about themselves when it comes to them. I responded back to a few of the emails as well, saying, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. Let me hear the other side now. But again, that process, I didn't like it either. Second, I don't need clapping here, guys. That was your turn. Let me please take my turn to talk. I don't need any cherishment from anyone. I'm here as a resident rep and I will talk whatever. There are some things you will like it, some things you will not like it. So please. Cost difference between excavation and capping. Last meeting, there was a gentleman here, engineer here, who actually did a presentation. And I spoke after the presentation as well. There is an affordable housing fund that was started last year. Approximately $800,000 is collected. Approximately, it could be a little bit over or a little bit under. This is the tax that was put in as 1.5% tax for the house built out, not the land, just the built out. So if your house valuation today is say $1 million, just for ease, and your land is $600,000 and your build out is $400,000, if you do any renovation on the house, and now your home value moved up from 1 million to 2 million or 1.5 million, most of it is moved up on the build out. So your build out moved up from $400,000 to $1.4 million. For that increase of $1 million, you pay 1.5% tax. And that goes into affordable funding tax or affordable fund. What we are going to do on the excavation versus capping, and what I heard on the cost, the difference, max difference was $1.7 million, even though they said $2 million. The lowest part of capping and the highest part of excavation, the difference was 1.7 million. And I think if it pays from that fund in 2 years or even in 5 years, there are testing that needs to get done on capping, which is every 2 years. And if there is a breakage, yes, they will carry insurance. The builders will carry insurance. We will carry our insurance. But it is not worth $2 million to keep getting into the lawsuits like that for next decade or 2 decades or 3 decades. So that's where I propose the excavation, then capping. But we also wanted to hear from the town residents. There were some comments made. This last minute, you knew about this a year ago. No, not a year ago. This was known about 2 years ago. Forget a year. But if we are doing this, we are going to go ahead and do it. It was then mentioned at that time, we do it, damn we don't. Yes, exactly. People will still come in and complain. People will never come in and compliment like Sarah did today. Ms. Sherman came on, she's also part of flood mitigation team. That are the kind of residents that are informed, not from other people. They're informed because they are attending the meeting, and one meeting doesn't show you all. You have to attend 3 to 4 meetings to really get an understanding of what the township is trying to do. So I will actually keep informing. Affordable housing is a state issue, state mandate. How many of you have gone to assembly people and talked about this issue to them? You keep coming to TC. Yes, we can look in that, but there is nothing much you can do about here at this level. State assembly people, whoever I spoke with, they don't even know our assemblyman. They don't even know if there is a position called assemblyman. There's a state senator and 2 assemblymen or assemblywomen from our constituency. Please go talk to them. Please go talk to them and talk about your frustration about affordable housing. 2025 to 2035, another affordable housing cycle is coming here. We are still talking about 2015 to 2025. So that is on the affordable housing. And someone mentioned about 2 lame ducks. And thank you for the compliment, Mr. Feld, calling us lame ducks because we are leaving. It is a 3-year term. And if there are 2 months left, I still consider that as a valuable 2 months. And I will do whatever it takes till December 31st. I am here till December 31st. I chose to take a break. I'm not out completely. I may come back next year and you will see me probably a couple of years from now. So please just remember, this is lame duck for this year maybe, but maybe soon I'll represent again.
Maybe, maybe not.
You tried running last year. You didn't even get the ticket. So I don't need to hear that from you. Okay? See, this is what happens when a person here is sitting and telling the facts. This is how they behave. When they are here, we are sitting quietly. They feel we are not even answering their questions. This is what the residents of Milburn are. So when you get informed, check who is informing you. Please do, because most of the time it's misinformation. And Mr. McDonald, the police blogger that we are talking about, and the KPI, and KPI was started about 3 years ago when we started office here. We started this KPI to keep resident informed. And if they're wrong, they need to get corrected. There's always room for improvement. And thank you for bringing that up. So if they're not wrong, I will let Mr. McDonald talk about why it is different than the 2. And as far as I know, there is no Oprah cost that is put to the resident. There are so many Oprah requests that have been put in by the residents that as a taxpayer, even me, pays for it. When you talk about taxpayer, remember, even I'm a taxpayer. All these people are taxpayer too. Whether they're tenants, some people have said, oh, she doesn't own a place in town. But I guess the rent is inclusive of the taxes as well. And the last one, if you don't know who our state senator is, for now, is Senator Cody, Governor Cody. He was a governor before. Myla JC, who's retiring this year. Governor Cody is not running this year. There are 2 new candidates on that ticket, and there will be 2 new candidates on the other ticket line as well. And Mr. John McEwen, who's our assemblyman now, but he's running as a state senator. So please reach out to our state senator and put your discontentment to them as well. Where it started, where the law started from, you should talk to them as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Khan?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, I agree with what Mr. Vinayak said. I recognize you're all concerned, primarily from the Marywood neighborhood. I mean, there are other districts which I don't see anybody talking about, but I'm sure that maybe the concern exists there too. But the process is really not complete by any stretch of the imagination. That's why at the beginning, Mayor Miggins pointed out that there's a meeting on Thursday. That's the next step in the process. I encourage all of you to attend and say the same things you said here or more or whatever. I don't know what their public comment timeframes are, but that's the next step. And depending on how that goes, then they will take a vote. They have not taken a vote yet. Your properties have not been designated as yet. They will take a vote. After that, it will come to the township committee. It will also have to go to the planning board. There's lots of steps left to be done with opportunities for public comment. And I personally don't see any reason to, I haven't made up my mind. There's no reason to vote today because the process is still, I wouldn't say it's the beginning, but it's far from the end.
Ms. Romano?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with my fellow committee members, and I also want to thank everybody that came here tonight. Everyone here should reach out, should attend the public information session on Thursday night. I also asked the chairwoman of HPC that she should have a virtual option Thursday night, which there is no virtual option. I've been getting a lot of emails, texts. I know our SID director, Steve Grillo, has heard from a lot of the merchants and business owners downtown. I don't believe the HPC spoke to the SID board to get their feeling on how the downtown merchants felt about it. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And I'm also concerned with how fast it's moving and that there should be more public input and more community outreach. Thank you.
Mr. Marizzi, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, there are a couple of issues that touch in my area, and one of them I'll start with is the Bear Properties litigation. Ms. Urso asked about that. Ms. Urso is the plaintiff in that case, and that has to do with a challenge to the legality of establishing the SID that you just spoke about. And I, although I'm not personally representing the township in that matter, my partner, Andy Brewer, has been doing that. I did attend a virtual case management conference over a year ago, where the discussion was with respect to the need to provide the leases in question. And the judge ordered that they be provided. There was a discussion about confidentiality. I've talked about this in the past. I'll do it again. The way that was resolved is the judge said, I think there should be a confidentiality order, submit proposed language to me, and I will make the decision about the terms of it. 2 or 3 days later, Mr. Brewer submitted a short form of a confidentiality order, which the judge asked for. And at the same time, Mr. Feld, who represents Bear Properties, submitted a very complicated, intricate, and restrictive confidentiality proposed agreement. Ever since that happened, that's where we sit. We're waiting for the court to decide between those two provisions. In the meantime, there was a notice from the court for mediation to take place in May. And prior to that time, we asked the court for clarification about the issue with respect to the leases that I just mentioned. In response, the judge scheduled a case management conference for next week. And this issue may be clarified further next week, but that's the status of it tonight. Now, there were a few odds and ends with respect to the 100% affordable housing project. There are scattered issues, and I'll just talk about them as I recall them being brought up. With respect to the need for a redevelopment plan, that was not required because of the sale of the property for $1. There's separate statutory authority that would have permitted that. The reason the redevelopment plan was adopted was because of the additional tools that are provided under redevelopment to facilitate this project, which include pilots and other types of tools that are not otherwise available under the municipal land use law. That's why the redevelopment plan was adopted, and you cannot have a redevelopment agreement unless you have a redevelopment plan. I have been practicing in the field of redevelopment law in New Jersey for about 25 years. This is a situation that's well understood. There was suggestion that there be we look at insurance. Yes, we are doing that with the township's consultant, looking at an extra type of policy over and above the normal that's given for environmental insurance coverage. That's on the table. With respect to the role of Mr. Beneke, he has provided financial commentary, but the transaction is not complete. So I've heard it said that there will be a reach out for a replacement financial consultant, which is appropriate. And the major work on the financial side of this is going to be with respect to the financial agreement, which I referred to before, which must be adopted by February. That's the agreement that provides for the payment in lieu of taxes. And then lastly, mentioned about the groundwater at the drinking water at the school. I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that the environmental review has not indicated any impact on groundwater from the DPW site. The groundwater contamination or the drinking water contamination.
It's a different source.
It's a different source. I didn't want it to be a belief that
It's equilibrium.
no, I understand. I just wanted the fact to be out there that the environmental study has not revealed any groundwater impact. That's all.
McDonald?
Yeah, just to comment on the statement by Dr. Kung regarding the KPIs. The KPIs that the township puts on the website indicate various statistics, including car thefts, car burglaries, home burglaries. And these are based on, essentially what charges are levied against the individuals that commit these crimes. It has been indicated to me by the police department that when they take in a crime statistic with regard to a home burglary that also results in a car theft, that it is one crime, that the person is being charged with burglary of the home, and all of that sort of gets lumped into it. So the stats that are put on the website are solitary car thefts, home burglaries, and burglaries into cars. Certainly, to Dr. Kung's point, if we're going to go through every single thing and count each one, that is something we could do, but we are reporting it as the police department reports it. And I would just like to comment too, that also when it comes to Oprah, Oprah is determined based on the volume of what you're requesting, and that has to be, researched. How easily is it acquired? What steps does the municipality have to do to get those reports, to redact those reports, and different things like that? And so, yes, in some cases they are quite voluminous. Sometimes they do take quite a bit of time, and sometimes they do require a special service charge. The only other thing that I'd like to comment on it is Ms. Best's comments regarding Fairfield Drive, Fairfield Terrace, and Martindale area. I do share in her frustration a bit about the condition of Fairfield Terrace and Fairfield and Martindale, in particular with the work that PSE&G has done. This has been relayed to them on multiple occasions. As a matter of fact, I had a Zoom call with PSE&G this morning to discuss the condition, in particular Fairfield Terrace, which I think their work there was subpar. They are going to be looking at how they can remediate that and make that situation better up there. And as far as Fairfield Drive goes, the project is not complete. There's been no milling or paving, so we can make jokes about that the catch basin is above a certain height, or that the blocks are above a certain height. However, the job is not complete. The road has not been milled. It has not been paved. So I think that's just I don't know, just a little bit over the top or too soon at this point. Let's wait until the job is completely finished, and then we can critique the work.
The only thing I wanted to say is about the HPC piece. I am the liaison to it, to that Historic Preservation Commission, and I'm sure I'll see you all at the meeting Thursday evening. But there's so many rumors flying around. I can't tell you the amount of phone calls I'm getting from all the different rumors that are out there, whether it's got to do with buildings that are getting designated or houses that want to be designated, or, you know, heck, I heard that the sale of the property at 165 Old Short Hills Road, which is 3.5 acres, is going to get developed into 300 apartments in 2 years. And so that could possibly get done with fair share housing, because we owe 1,200 units. So they could come back and rezone in residential. They don't care. I've heard there's 60 condos going there. I've heard, I've heard all kinds of stories of what's happening up in the in that district. So I'll be just as curious. I'll have read the report, and I will be there on Thursday evening to see. We moved into town in 98. I believe it was in 1990. Mayor Becker could tell me when they did the last designation of historic districts. It was the Short Hills District and the Wyoming District. And I think at that time, they also did want to include the Murraywood, Knollwood section, in addition to parts of South Mountain Estates. And I believe the Cross Gates. There's some articles that are in the item from 1990 back then. So just so you know, this is not the first time that they've been there, that all of these properties have been on the element of the master plan since 1991. And that's what I believe the HPC is looking at. So we'll all go on Thursday, but there's lots of rumors out there. And so I always like to deal with the facts, and we'll see what it is, but they're a little disconcerting, some of the things we are hearing. And so let's see how we do on Thursday night. Thank you. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda? None? May I have a motion to approve resolution 23-242 through resolution 23-247, which are listed on the consent agenda? May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Yes.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 23-248. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 23-248?
What is it? Could you explain, please?
Matt, Mr. Larissy, this is the transfer of the funds to the iBank, correct? Correct. So this stems back from when the Township Committee had previously provided authorization for funding of the flood mitigation projects at the joint meeting of Essex and Union County facilities. We're paying our percentage share of those improvements. And so what is happening is that funding is being transferred to the iBank, which is the entity that is helping to fund these projects.
What is that, the pipe project, sewage project?
It's a flood mitigation project of the entire facility in Elizabeth that collects our waste from. So during Hurricane Sandy, I believe, that facility was near inundation from floodwaters. And so they identified that they need to provide flood protection at that facility in Elizabeth due to not only, I think, riverine flooding, but also coastal flooding. And so they came up with what was a $99 million at that time, a $99 million flood mitigation project.
Wasn't that the 90% would be covered by the state?
Correct,
or-
correct, correct.
But when something like this happens, shouldn't the subcommittee finance should meet and talk about it before it comes in here?
You've already approved this money. This money is not, this is not
Yeah,
new
but
money.
at least, what exactly is coming in here? I'm asking the detail again, and which I know 90% was paid by, but
Will
I
be
think-
paid by,
Yeah,
will be paid.
we haven't had sub-finance committee meeting in a while now. I think once a quarter, we should get together and go over these things, so we know exactly what is going on. I mean, I actually of the opinion we should add resident to the budget advisory committee or something like that. Whereas it is them also involves Right now, they're not involved. At least let's talk in the subcommittee meeting to go over what financial decisions you're making. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the committee in regards to resolution 23-248? May I have a motion to approve resolution 23-248? May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Yes.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to talk about the receipt of the 2022 audit. And copies of the audit in full are available in Town Hall upon request and have also been posted on our website. Our auditor is available this evening if there are any questions from the committee. I would like to introduce our auditor, David Cannon, so he may provide a brief overview of the audit. Again? Gannon, what'd I say? Well, it says Cannon. It doesn't say Gannon, it says Cannon.
I've been referred to as worse.
Okay, you know it's Irish. Right?
I'm good with that.
That's right.
So I will be brief. It seems like you have had a long night. Just to tell you, we have received, we received excellent cooperation from the township administration as well as all the employees. Very helpful and cooperative. So, obviously it's additional work for them to respond to many requests. We always do appreciate it. We did issue the audit on time within the revised deadline by the division. We are engaged to perform a financial statement audit as well as a federal single audit. So we do give an opinion on the financial statements, not in accordance with US General GAAP, but with the regulatory basis of accounting that's promulgated by the Division of All Government Services. Much more conservative method of accounting. What I'll tell you is that overall, the township's financial position to me is in excellent condition. The current fund balance was $18.7 million at the end of 2022. Within the 22 budget, you utilized $6.9 million of fund balance to balance the budget. However, you were able to regenerate that. In addition to that, to increase the fund balance from the prior year. You did that by, miscellaneous revenue that were anticipated, revenues that you had budgeted for, exceeded, and then prior appropriation reserves lapsed from the prior year budget. In addition to that, you have a reserve for tax appeal, about $1.5 million, which is, significant and could be, put to good use if needed. You have several trust reserves that provide, additional funds in cases of compensated absence payouts, storms, self-insurance issues. So overall, the overall budget and financial position is really, really good for the township. Parking utility fund balance was about $461,000 at the end of 2022, decrease of $323,000. Obviously still trying to rebound from post-pandemic. However, as was mentioned earlier, the paying off of that debt is going to relieve a significant obligation from your annual budgets, whereby the revenues that you're generating now will be able to go towards new projects or for other means. Tax collection rates for 2022 was 99.65%. Over the last number of years, it's been over 99%. Overall, the township's debt load is very, very low. For this size town, your debt load, your net debt was $14.7 million or 0.142%, where 3.5% is actually authorized under statute. So that's a pretty significant measure of the township not having significant debt. Based on the level of federal funding this year, we were required to perform a federal single audit. So if you have grant expenditures over $750,000 in any given year, an additional audit has to be done. We have to provide an opinion on that. We've provided an opinion that the compliance is unmodified. The result of that was because we had because the level of ARP funding that the township received, we didn't find any issues with how you use the money. With that, if there's any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
What was the recommendation in there, or?
So we didn't have a formal recommendation that requires corrective action. So during our audit, we also do transactional testing on a random basis. So when we do a financial audit, we're not doing 100% testing or other types of audits that may require that, whether it's forensic, operational. That's not the engagement that we were engaged to do. But with that, we found, generally speaking, the support that we've asked for during the course of our audit was able to be provided. in all cases. We did find instances where parking revenue, from the meters, obviously it's not as controlled, not as quantifiable. We do have a general comment in there that we've communicated to management that we'd like them to look into ways to maybe better document those monies being received.
That is from parking, you said?
Parking utility.
Parking utilities.
So parking meters,
Cash.
The cash.
cash.
Anything
I
else?
just watched somebody picking that cash up the other day outside our office. It's a woman.
Yeah.
She had a
Eastern Arbor.
She had this big old gun. I was like, oh my.
So I didn't make a formal recommendation because that is an area where you gotta have to do a cost benefit analysis to understand whether putting additional controls is worth the,
Expense is what.
expense of doing it. So I communicated that to management, also included as a general comment
Mm.
to make the township committee aware of it.
Mm.
And that's something just to look at.
Any other comment or recommendation you have? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I reviewed the audit report, was pretty impressive. There are over 100 pages of tables. I used to work for a major financial institution. I think this annual report was more extensive than some of the things that they put out. I guess tonight we're putting out, they're just saying that we reviewed the comments and the recommendations. There were no comments, but the recommendations. That's what we're voting on tonight, but we have already set up or processed setting up a meeting, Mr. Ganaya, Mr. Larissy, Mr. McDonald, the finance subcommittee to go over those recommendations in more detail and whatever other questions that we have. So it was a very impressive job.
Thank you.
So any other recommendation on that or your opinion that we should make sure we take a look at, or I should take a look at? Because I did not get a chance to review it and I will not be voting on that today. I'll recuse myself or, because I did not get a chance to look at it.
Okay, so there's other couple general comments within the report regarding ARPA funds. Just reminding the township that ARPA funds are required to be obligated by the end of this 2024, 12/31/24, and expended by 12/31/26. So, there were some funds in the prior year budget that weren't fully expended. That may need to be reviewed at the end of this year before they were, normally would lapse. They can't lapse to fund balance those funds. They may need to be reobligated. So that's something that we brought to the attention of the township. Generally speaking, cybersecurity is a major concern for all municipalities. That's just something to keep in the forefront of your minds to make sure that you're properly investing in ensuring internal controls over cybersecurity exist. And then overall, looking at some of the utility and general capital funds, some of the older ordinances, just to see if some of those are eligible to be canceled, not being used anymore. And there were some cash deficits that should just be reviewed to see whether additional funding should be used to eliminate those deficits.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve resolution 23-249?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernaya?
Abstain.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could just mention that although you don't have to vote for the resolution, there is an affidavit to be signed. That indicates you review and see.
Yeah, I haven't signed that either. I'm going to review it and then
At some
sign.
point, that's.
Yes.
Not tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Mayor Bernaya, you are scheduled to introduce ordinance 2652-23.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2652-23, an ordinance authorizing the lease of a 46,500 square foot portion of the real property located at 1025 South Orange Avenue, known as Block 4407, Lot 19. Statement of purpose on this is this ordinance is being proposed to authorize the township to enter into a lease agreement for a portion of the real property located at 1025 South Orange Avenue in order to provide sports fields for township's organized recreational program. We have spoken about this last couple of years now, or a few months, that we don't have enough fields to play. Our kids don't have enough fields to play, not only just kids, adults too. So this is one of the options that rec committee was able to find out for us. So we are going to lease this property for kids and adults to play in there. from June through August and then September through October. Those 5 months, the rent we'll be paying was about $2,000 a month. So a total of $10,000 for the year. That will be the expense for township, 10 to 12, okay.
In case anybody doesn't know, 1025 South Orange Avenue is Templeton in Cheshire.
Is that long temple, it's the field in the back, behind their parking lot. It's a plain level field. And I think, and thanks to
Mayor
Mayor
Lieberberg.
Lieberberg, to getting us connected with them.
See what happens when we all work together for a common good.
Is there any other explanation or detail you wanted to provide, Mr. McDonald?
No, I think the only other thing is that the township is agreeing to maintain that field for our use. And that it's a good pressure relief valve for our rec programs and being able to have practices and activities up there.
Thank you.
I think this is an amazing creative idea. Thanks again, Mayor, and thank you to all the professionals here and the rec committee to get to a solution to figure out the play area for our kids as well as the residents of the township. Anyone else have any question on that? I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading and that the township clerk be authorized to have ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, November 21st, 2023.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano? Yes. Deputy Mayor Benaya?
Yes.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2653-23.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2653-23. Ordinance to authorize the acquisition by the Township of Milburn of a building and lands owned by Wyman Associates, a New Jersey partnership commonly known as Block 1004, Lot 6 on the tax map of the Township of Milburn, and appropriating the sum of $2,200,000 to pay the cost thereof. We've talked about this previously too. This is a building on East Willow. The intention is to use it as temporary space if town hall ends up getting renovated, and then more permanently to turn it into a community center.
Okay.
Questions?
Any questions? None? None?
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law on the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, November 21st, 2023.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Benaya?
No.
Mayor Megan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Romano, you are scheduled to sponsor 2648-23.
Thank you. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2648-23. Bond ordinance to authorize the acquisition of real property for public purposes in, by, and for the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $2,500,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
I declare the public hearing open.
Chair Feld, I have a few questions, because about what our state controller talks about participatory budgeting. I suggest that we postpone the second reading on this until you adopt the sale, because if you don't prove, because this one is tied to what we just approved. You know, I don't know why we're authorizing issuance of bonds if we have not yet authorized the purchase of the property. Next question is consistency. If you look at the two different ordinances that you just had for first reading, the one about the lease, you had the lease agreement attached. You don't have the purchase agreement attached to this one, nor do you have the appraisal. This is why the public should know if there's a difference, what we're paying to what the difference is between the appraised value. I'm just suggesting right now until you approve the sale, I mean, I think that should go first. Then you do the financing, because right now you're gonna approve the financing, what happens if you don't approve the sale? I mean, it just seems that it should happen on the same day. I'm just saying as a practical, prudent matter, because right now, there is no one's seen the sales agreement, it hasn't been attached. I mean, I'm just saying consistency. For the TBJ, you had the lease. So we'll give comments on it. This one, you don't even have the sale agreement. You don't have the appraisal. And because one of the things you're gonna have to determine, because there also is a difference between the 2.5 and I think the acquisition price of 2.2, what's the difference being used for? I don't know. I just say it would be more prudent at this time, I think, to put a show off. And then to be able to explain, here's the sales and we have the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Feld. One of them's gone. Okay. Anyone else online? Anyone else in the audience? Annette?
I'm gonna answer the question.
So just to be clear, and I know that Mr. Feld had received the appraisal through an Oprah request. The appraisal of this property was at $1.9 million. The township is purchasing the property at 2.2. The rationale is cost avoidance in the event that we would have to condemn a property for purchase. And so the additional funding is for any work that would need to be done on the property in order for us to occupy it. So that is the rationale behind the $2.5 million bond ordinance.
Annette?
So my vote today
We're not.
is not to have anything to do with what was raised by the resident, Mr. Feld. I rely on our professionals to do the due diligence on everything, so it has nothing to do with the process. Whatever I'm going to vote on, will be voting on directly whether I'm in favor or not in favor.
Sure.
But it has nothing to do with the process, or I don't believe in the process.
Sure.
I do believe in our professionals
Thank you.
and the process and the due diligence.
Okay. Yep.
I move that this public hearing be closed and that the consideration of final passage and adoption be adjourned to the October 17th, 2023 Township Committee meeting.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
yes.
Ms. Romano.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak.
No.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's good, you're good. Mr. Vinayak, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2649-23.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2649-23. Bond ordinance to authorize the undertaking of various improvements to the Milburn Avenue entrance to Taylor Park in, by and for the Township of Milburn in the Essex County, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $300,000 to pay the cost thereof to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Mr. Town Crister. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
It's my understanding the Rose Garden is on the National Historic Register.
Mhm.
And hopefully the improvements you're talking about are not going to impact the Rose Garden, because
Correct.
myself and
That's
my
correct.
family really enjoy that. And
That's
so-
correct.
So thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Mr. Vinayak.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
yes.
Ms. Romano.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak.
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2650-23. It's a bond ordinance to authorize the relocation of certain facilities and operations from the DPW yard in, by, and for the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $600,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open.
Does this, is this also to do with relocating the collection facility to over by the reservoir? I made some comments on that before. And my only comment is, Mr. Marizzi, you misrepresented my statement before about the pollution in the high school water. My point is, things in nature seek equilibrium. If there are contaminants in one location, they will seek to leach out and be in equilibrium with other places. My concern is any refuse that's brought to the collection facility. I see it dumped on the ground. There's runoff, there's battery collection, there's metals collection. I can see stains on the concrete. Eventually that's gonna leach into the ground, and then the pollution plume is going to reach the reservoir. It may or may not be significant, but I think it's something you really need to consider. And I haven't heard the appropriate amount of concern, but I just wanted to correct the earlier statements. You know, don't misinterpret what I said about the drinking water. I understand drinking water comes from the reservoir. My point was, if you have pollutions in the soil, pollutants, they will leach out and try and be in equilibrium. And that is what my daughter saw, is the result of pollutants from other sources working its way into the drinking source. So if we leave pollutants on a site instead of removing them, over time, they're going to leach into the soil. So just so we're on the same page. Thank you for the opportunity.
Didn't mean to misinterpret.
No, that's fine. I really didn't get explicit on why I even brought that up. That was my reasoning. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booker.
Jeffrey Feld of Short Hills on 2650-23. I just asked that this be postponed to October 17, 2023, because we've heard a lot of questions earlier today, comments about due process under the cover of night. I would think, because you're still going out for the survey about the project. Now, this 600,000, will none of these monies be used for the remediation? It's just tied to moving the facility?
Correct.
But I just think if this project, remember, because we're talking about due process and under the cover of night, one of the things that Judge Passamano explicitly did state, and he carved out, was the validity of the fair share housing settlement that was approved, dated July 30th, 2021. And when we talk about due process and under the cover of night, that was one settlement.
Want to say something, Mr.
Yeah.
McDonald?
Couple questions regarding this ordinance. One is, as I think we had mentioned the last time the comments were brought up about the environmental impact to the movement of these DPW facilities or storage. We have done back in 2019, the township did a study of the site to make a determination of buildable area, wetlands impact, different things like that. Certainly a part of this process is getting any sort of DEP permit that is required as a result of our operation there. Much like we currently operate at our current DPW facility, there are controls in place to make sure that various items don't find themselves into the soil or wherever. It's generally making sure that they safely get to a sanitary sewer collection system. So all of that will be part of this process. To address Mr. Feld's comments about the purpose of the ordinance, as I'm sure he's well aware, is that an ordinance specifically states the purpose for the monies that are being spent. Therefore, it is not feasible to go outside of those purposes. We can't all of a sudden say we're going to relocate DPW, but we're going to then use this money to remediate a particular site. That is the purpose of the capital ordinance, is the purpose of spelling out the purpose of the capital ordinance. And since Mr. Feld brought it up in this hearing, which is not relevant to the fact that what Judge Passamano said, it should be clear that the judge also made very clear that he was ruling on the matters that were before him. Okay, and even though none of that has anything to do with this bond ordinance.
Thank you. You may.
Yes, I also feel compelled to dispel the notion that there is a possibility of undoing the settlement agreement. Mr. Feld, I know that you were a witness to the case management conference that we held this afternoon. And I am fresh from having been hearing the emphatic position of the judge that this is going to happen. The idea of a Whispering Woods argument, if ever there was an opportunity for a legal argument of that type to be made, has long since passed. The time has passed for that. The judge was very emphatic today that this is going to happen. And she's going to keep the township's feet to the fire through my feet. So I'm feeling very much, on top of her focus on the township through me.
And whatever you just said will be completely ignored because they don't want to hear that.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one question for you because this is your business. Do you know of any case in the state of New Jersey where they've gone back to court and have been successful in breaking their fair share housing?
I don't, but I'll color that by saying I am not your affordable housing attorney.
True. I
That's
just didn't know.
Mr. Cantor. My function is to get the redevelopment agreement
Together.
negotiated and the financial agreement. And I was on the carpet today,
Mhm.
as Mr. McDonald knows and Mr. Feld knows, because that hasn't happened yet. And so I'm reporting the tenor of what the judge said, and how clearly she said it. So I don't know about other cases, but I know what I've heard from this judge about this case, and I know about the timeliness of making an argument to upset a settlement agreement that's 2 years old.
And I really wish everyone out there hearing it, hear this loud and clear than actually hearing the misinformation spreading around of whatever about this case is.
Sure. Thank you,
I
Mr.
don't know anything about the misinformation.
No,
All
again,
know
I don't know
is
either,
heard from
but this
the
is what I'm
judge.
hearing,
Yes,
right? The fact
yes,
versus whatever else is being spread out.
yes. And Mr. Feld was on the virtual today, as was Ms. Pasternak and Ms. Stone, and I'm not sure who else. There are other citizens who were there and have heard the same thing.
Terrific. I move that this public
Pardon
hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Romano,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak,
Yes.
Mayor Miggins.
Yes. Ordinance 2651-23. This is an ordinance for adoption of the floodplain management regulations of Milburn Township. Tonight is the time set. This ordinance repeals and replaces Article 7 titled Flood Damage Prevention of the Milburn Township Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance, Section DRZ-701 through Section DRZ-705 to adopt new floodplain management regulations concerning the development of land and to designate a floodplain administrator. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare this hearing open. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I please have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Romano?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Banayak?
Yes.
Mayor Miggins?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Old business, we are going to talk about the two-way conceptual plan for Essex Street. Mr. McDonald, you are here to provide an update.
Yes, I just wanted to provide an update to the township committee and the community that we have received the draft of the conceptual plan for two-way traffic on Essex Street. The internal group for two-way traffic circulation has met and gone over the plan and has provided a lot of good feedback to Colliers Engineering. We Christine Bugle and myself will be meeting with them on Thursday to discuss those items and those changes. They've already been provided to them and they've been incorporating them. But just to follow up with that, it is our hope that we will have something to the township committee for the October 17th meeting that can be discussed and perhaps have Colliers present that. But certainly the next step after this is, your awareness, but then we want to get out into the public and start talking about two-way circulation once there's a level of comfort with the township committee. So in anticipation of that, if there are any other comments that you have now that you've been provided the material or questions that you have, certainly feel free to pass them along to me. And likely, we've got a good group of people looking at it that they've probably asked those questions, but please just let us know so that we can get that all baked in to what is the final version of this.
Can you just review the scope? I know it's not all of Essex Street.
It is all.
It is all.
Yeah, so it's Essex Street from
I thought we
its
were-
intersection.
No, it's the Milburn and the Essex.
Yeah.
Was phasing in was just full complete Essex. And then if that is successful, so this has been in works for the last couple of years.
No, I know, but I thought we were only going up to Main Street.
No,
No.
it's
From the-
Milburn
from the
Avenue
west side.
to Douglas.
It's all the way through. And that one was brought in the first meeting, bless you. But that first meeting, everyone felt, let's go with all the way from Essex to Essex because there is not any addition of traffic light within the Essex Street. So it is easier to do it complete versus on the Milburn side, there is more of a construction that needs to be done. So we'll do Essex first and then.
To be honest with you, I wondered when I thought it was gonna end at Main Street, what we were gonna do if you were going the wrong way.
Yeah, it is the full length of Essex.
So there's consensus to keep moving with this. That sounds like, okay, awesome. Folks, we have no matters of new business, so may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.